Audio made possible by www.jackettomee.com. Warning. The following has suggestive content that is not suitable for some listeners. Audio Fanfiction Productions presents Wide Awake. Fanfiction written by Angskata003. Fanfiction inspired by the Twilight Saga written by Stephanie Meyer. Chapter 34. Very Tasty Nibbles.
Edward's point of view. It was like we were in our own bubble when we were together. And I know that shit sounds so fucking cliche, but it was true nonetheless. The bubble made my girl feel safe, and it made me feel suit, giving us each a purpose and making us both feel loved, as walked the halls of the school. It wasn't necessarily impenetrable, but for those small moments where it remained intact we were perfectly happy. Rose and Emmett came to our table that first Monday back. Brandon and Rose kept fucking chattering away about the most useless bullshit, while Emmett made the occasional crude remark and Jess snickered alongside them. But me and my girl were in a world all our own, not really giving a shit what was going on around us. She moved her chair closer to me that day. So close that she was nearly in my lap. I fucking loved it, putting my arm around her shoulder, and letting her lean on me while I breathed in all the flowers and cookies in her hair. She still rubbed my knee and I still caressed her neck, while we ate our cookies in complete silence. We didn't have to look at each other, or fucking prattle in each other's ears. We were saying everything that needed to be said with simple touches. It was little moments like those, where everything else existed, yet it didn't. I'm sure we were both vaguely aware of the way everyone else at the table began stealing curious glances at us and our casual intimacy. But that kind of shit didn't penetrate the bubble. In the halls, my girl was still nervous and anxious. But I could dispel it with the stroke of my thumb on her arm or hand as I walked with my arm draped across her shoulder. She eventually slid her arm around my waist, returning the embrace, and relaxing into me as we made it from class to class. The halls were where the bubble was most thin. People were always walking too fucking close, or saying something offensive about one of us, and making me wish I could just let go for 1 second, and give them all what they deserved. But Bella always soothed that rage inside of me, squeezing me, or telling me she loved me. It was weird how we worked like that. Weird and utterly fucking perfect. We did every bio assignment together. We didn't really care if it was meant to be individual work, we still moved close to each other, and went over everything as a pair. I would make her laugh quietly when I made a spontaneous derogatory remark on some of the very unflattering photos of the reproductive frog organs. She would make me snicker when she furrowed her brows and tilted her head at the book, trying to find out where the organ was. Then blushing afterwards. She never fucking told me about Jim, or what happened after I dropped her off at the doors. But she always came out smiling when she saw me waiting for her. I offered to drive her home a few times, but she seemed to like having the free time with Brandon, so I'd always walked her to the car, and open the door for her. I spend the evenings with Carlisle in his study. Usually we'd just play a game of chess, or debate certain medical topics that had recently become of interest to me. He loved that shit. Whenever I would touch on a topic in the medical field, his eyes would light up and we'd spend fucking hours talking about it. I kept the subjects of the conversations completely neutral. He was curious about my girl, but he would restrain himself from asking me any questions directly related to her condition. That's how Daddy C worked. He couldn't fucking help himself when he saw someone he thought he could help. By the end of the night, he would chuckle at me and shake his head. He usually beat me at chess. And the nights? Well, the nights were always the fucking best with my girl. And not just because we were making out or using the dirtiest method of desensitization ever documented, but because we didn't need the bubble when we were alone in my room. We just fucking were. Normal and comfortable. She'd lean against my shoulder and watch me eat with a smile, while we talked about the shit that happened that day. And afterwards, well, those first couple nights, I kept shit super simplistic. Just making out with her until we grew tired, like we did the first night. I'd let my hands wander over her less sensitive body parts. Arms, back, sides, thigh, stomach. Just simple shit. She always liked it when I touched her. She would let her little hands wander on me too. She loved rubbing my chest and sides. And of course, pulling my hair. The third night of the desensitization, we had just lain down and began kissing like the 2 previous nights, when I discovered that I needed the safe word too. I kept us on our sides as our tongues battled for dominance, and she pressed her body closer to mine. I slid my hand from her cheek to her shoulder, and down her arm, as she grasped my side tightly, pulling me closer to her. As usual, I let the kiss gradually become more urgent. And as usual, she hitched her leg over my hip and shifted against me, eliciting a breathless moan from me. She always fucking loved hearing me make sounds. I never held back on that shit. She panted into my mouth as her little hand worked its way up my side, and to my neck. I knew what was about to happen, but was too involved in pulling her thigh closer, and plunging my tongue deeper into her mouth, to stop it in time. She weaved her fingers through my hair, and pulled it into a tight fist, crushing her face to mine further. I hissed into her mouth and yanked myself away. Fucking Cookie. I nearly shouted breathlessly as my eyes popped open to meet her shocked gaze. She made to pull her leg away, but I held it firmly with my hand, as her fist finally let my hair go, and she gazed at me quizzically. I sighed at the relief and looked at her apologetically. Hair. I breathed, rubbing up her thigh slowly, as she stroked my hair softly with her fingers. She frowned at me, still a little breathless.
I'm sorry, I thought you liked that.
She whispered, moving her hand to caress my cheek lovingly. I restrained a massive eye roll. Yeah, I do. I whispered truthfully while gazing into her hooded brown eyes. Just give the scalp some recovery time, I explained with a grimace as my scalp throbbed a bit. 3 straight nights of constant pulling is some painful shit.
Oh.
She breathed in understanding, moving her hand to caress the nape of my neck as I continued rubbing up and down her thigh softly.
Well,
she whispered with an oddly curious expression.
What else do you like?
She asked, licking her lips as her breathing returned to normal. I halted my hand on her thigh, just using my thumb to caress it as I gazed into her eyes. I was thinking this kind of shit was important. A whole honesty thing on what we did and didn't enjoy. So I fucking told her. You know that shit I do to your neck? I whispered softly as she caressed my nape with her little fingers. She smiled a little and nodded, but I still felt compelled to show her. I broke my gaze from hers as I moved my lips to her jaw, and trailed them down to her throat lightly. I began kissing my way up to her ear slowly. She sighed, and leaned her head further into the pillows to give me better access as I darted my tongue out to lick and suck her skin all the way to her little earlobe, making her shiver a little. She shifted her face into the crook of my neck, using her lips to kiss it softly, which she did sometimes. But this time she darted her tongue out and licked it. I sighed into her skin as her warm tongue met my neck, and resumed rubbing up and down her thigh. She fucking hummed as she kept licking my neck, occasionally sucking a little bit up to my ear, and making me push my hips into her minutely as my breathing sped up. When her lips met my ear, she gently grazed my earlobe with her teeth, making me shiver against her.
You taste good.
She purred quietly into my ear. I expelled a shaky gust of air, and wrapped my fingers around her thigh tightly. That was quite possibly the sexiest fucking thing I had ever had whispered in my ear. Not the dirtiest by any means, but definitely the sexiest. I wanted to tell her to use more teeth, but my scalp told me to shut my goddamn mouth. So instead I plunged my lips into her neck, and returned the favor by licking and sucking gently as I rubbed her thigh. I wanted to ask her what she liked, but figured she wouldn't have any clue, until it happened for the first time. When we worked our way back to each other's lips, I decided to start desensitizing one spot I had never tried before. After a few moments of kissing I pulled away breathless and kept my gaze on her hooded eyes as I slowly slid my hand up her thigh. Her eyes held no protest as I decreased the pressure of my palm, and lightly ghosted it over her ass cheek. She tensed it slightly, and I knew it was coming.
Cookie.
She whispered, still caressing my hair sweetly, and licking her lips as I began rubbing her thigh once again. It only took 2 tries before I was cupping her ass, and pressing her into me, eliciting a soft moan from her as we resumed the kissing. That was just the process of the whole fucking thing. And 3 nights later, I was able to grab it without even a thought of a cookie from my girl. It made her smile into our kiss.